mother and grandmother were liberated on a death march from the concentration camp in Leipzig. My mother had left my grandmother with a family in Poland, and she proceeded to ride the rails throughout Europe in search of my father. She arrived in Theresienstadt, confirmed from some of the inmates that he was in fact there, but the camp was closed to her because it was quarantined as a result of a typhoid epidemic. But undaunted, she snuck in anyways. And ultimately found my father glued to a radio, listening to the International Red Cross for a list of survivors. And then my mother engineered their escape from the camp. They had lost everything, and almost everyone, including a son that meant anything to them, but they steadfastly and resolutely made the decision to rebuild their lives and to start over again. They ended up in a displaced persons camp in Stuttgart, Germany, where my sister and I were born. I marvel to this day at how they found a way to continue their lives while coping with the incomprehensible psychological and physical trauma of being hated and hunted by those who had been their neighbors for years. I recall the feeling of being cocooned in an atmosphere of love and the restorative spirit of family and other survivors. We left Bremerhaven in May of 1950, crossed the Atlantic on the USS General Stuart Heinzelmann, and landed at Pier 21 on my second birthday, the first day of the rest of our lives. My parents spoke freely, albeit tearfully, about their experiences, their grievous losses, their fears, both prior to and during the war. Those discussions in the home about fairness, justice, equality, the evils of prejudice and discrimination, the imperative to show appreciation by giving back to the community, informed the rest of my life and compelled the selection, I'm sure, of education and human rights advocacy as not only my avocation, but my vocation as well. And then I met Sam, my soulmate, the love of my life, and immediately knew for whom I was waiting. He was telling me about his activities on behalf of Jews in the Soviet Union. And until that point, I had been planning rallies in Toronto on behalf of Soviet Jews during the 60s, 70s, and 80s. And here was Sam literally risking his life in the Soviet Union. And I was so impressed and so taken with his humanity and his compassion. When Sam went into respiratory failure, Jamie was a year and 4 months at the time. What I had hoped, what I prayed for, was to buy enough time so that our baby daughter, Jamie, could develop a conscious memory of her father. Sam's concern, on the other hand, was how to convince a young child that a man who cannot walk, who can't talk, and who can't breathe on his own could still love her so deeply. And he needn't have worried, because over the ensuing 19 years, Jamie demanded a father. and she got one. What I've done, the paths I've chosen, this great and humbling honor, are, I pray, a vindication of my parents' survival and a testament to and realization of their dreams and their hopes and their gratitude to this wonderful country for giving us opportunity and a second chance at life.